up, everybody? This is Power to Women, and this is, I think, the 27th episode. Not really sure, but yeah. This is gonna be a very, very exciting episode, mostly because this person I'm talking about is, like, an idol of mine. Like, I didn't know she existed before I started researching her, but, like, after I found out what she was doing and what she did, mind blown, literally. But yeah. So I'm super excited to talk about this person I'm going to be talking about. But before I talk about this person, this wonderful person, I need to talk about my special guest of the show today. And that will be Selena. So Selena is my plant. Not sure what kind of plant she is again. I'm sorry. I give them like my own names and then I forget what they're actually called. But if you remember, Juanita, I believe this is like Juanita's cousin, I believe. But yeah, I'm not really sure. But yeah, she's the newest addition of the family, and she's doing good, you know. And again, she's in a pot from Wakeheart Candles. So if you want to go get a candle and then burn it, get a crystal, then you can reuse it as a freaking flower pot. 3 in 1 right there. You get a candle, a crystal, and a new planting pot. Wonderful, honestly. But anyway, who cares? But yeah, so that was my special guest, Selena, and my little cup. So if you're listening, you need to go watch because this cup I have right here, if you can see, it's got a little octopus on it, and I thought it was just the cutest little thing. It's just water. Don't worry, it's not like vodka or anything. It's just water. But yeah, so I guess now that I've introduced all of my friends for the show, I can start it now, okay? So the person I'm going to be talking about today is someone that is the first to do something, okay? I don't want to give too much away, but she's an amazing person. She's climbed a lot of, like, obstacles throughout her life, and she's defeated all of them. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Valentina Tereshkova. There you go. She is Russian. She comes from Russia, and she still lives in Russia. She was born March 6th, 1937, and she's still alive. So if you want to go check her out, you can, because she's still kicking it, you know? But I guess, you know what, I'm going to start with what she did first, because I feel like that's super important. So Valentina is known for, are you listening? Being the first woman in space. Isn't that freaking amazing? Okay, for me personally, I have wanted to go to space, I think, since I could breathe. So since I was born, I wanted to go to space. I don't know why. I've just always been, like, called to want to go to space, you know what I mean? I don't know. That's not really a calling, I guess, but I guess I should say I've always had, like, a fascination with it, and I've always, like, looked up at the stars. I like aliens. I like planets. Like, you ask anybody that knows me, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, that Emily likes space, you know? And I just thought that was so cool that she was the first woman in space, and I wanted to talk about her because I didn't know who the first woman in space was, you know? And I feel like that should be something that women should know about, you know? Because that's a big role model for a lot of people, you know? If I would have known about Valentina earlier in my life, I don't know, maybe I would have tried to go to space earlier, you know? I'm not sure. But I just know that I'm glad that I know who Valentina is now, and I know that I want to share her story and what she did with the rest of the world, or whoever's watching or listening. But yeah, so let's jump into it. So Valentina was born in Yaroslav region of Russia. Before I continue, I just want to apologize in advance for butchering all of these names. I am not Russian. I've never spoken Russian. I've never been to Russia. So I say something's wrong, I apologize. And if you want to, let me know how to pronounce them, because I had to look up how to say Valentina's last name like 50 times today and just have it repeating so I could listen to how to pronounce it. But yeah, so if you know how to pronounce them, let me know. But yeah, so she has 2 siblings, okay? She was the second of 3, so they had 3 children in the family. The father was a World War II soldier, and sadly he actually died at World War II. And her mother was working in the textile factory, and so her mother became a single mother, obviously, when her father died. She started school in 1945 at the age of 8. So a little bit behind. Not bad, though, but not super good, But she was freaking super smart still. And so, yeah, she did actually finish high school. She finished high school, but she didn't get her higher education until later on. So she just had a high school degree. And then because she did start going to higher education, like college and whatnot. But she had to drop out, and because she had to start working for the family and helping her mother out and all that stuff. But she didn't stop completely going to school. She still took like correspondence classes or courses. So what I took that as is like she just took like classes on the side to finish up her degree. But yeah, so if you want to go to school, you can. Like Valentina like proves that to people, like because okay. I had to work through college, I had to pay for my own college, I had to go through all that stuff, and it's hard, don't get me wrong, it's super hard, but, I wanted to get my degree, so I pushed for it, and I made it happen. So, if you're thinking, oh, I have to work, and other people don't have to work, but they can go to college, but I have to work and go to college, and that just seems too hard, and I just don't think I can do it, you can do it, okay? You don't have to take a full semester, you can take half a semester, or you can take 1 or 2 classes here and there, There's no timeline of when you should have your degree. I feel like in today's society, there's a lot of people saying, and a lot of societal norms, I should say, that say you should have a degree, at least 1 degree by 2022. And that's just simply not correct, you know what I mean? There's plenty of people in their 50s and 60s just barely getting their first higher education degree, And I feel like there should be no age limit. I know there's not, but in societal terms, norms, there is age limit of when you should have your degree. And that's just not right, So if you think you can't do it right now, don't worry, you don't have to. You can wait, you can live life before you go to school, I know me personally, when I got out of high school, I was like, wow, I just spent my whole life basically in school, and now I'm gonna go do school again. It was hard to wrap my head around, because I'm like, this is a lot, you know what I mean? But I knew I wanted that degree, because degrees do help you get jobs. They help you get higher paying jobs. They help you become smarter, Obviously, their education, and any education is important, and I think that's what ultimately made the decision for me, was because I know education is super important, and knowledge is power, and I wanted that, I wanted that knowledge, I wanted that education, so I went out and got it. And so did Valentina, but it took her a while, and that's all right, But yeah, so she joined the Air Force, actually. I'm not sure what year, but she actually joined the Air Force, and she became an expert in parachuting jumping, and her first jump was actually when she was 22 years old. So, that's not super old, and that's not super young. So, yeah. But she kept her parachuting a secret from her family, because she didn't want her family to, worry or think, she's, endangering her life or anything, which parachuting is very dangerous, but she just kept it a secret, But before she was actually in the Air Force, she was working in a textile factory just like her mom was. But I think that's what ultimately led her to join the Air Force, was because she wanted something different. She wanted something more, So she joined the Air Force, and at that time, like in the 1950s, 60s era, that was when the big space race was going on, And we've all heard about the space race, I'm sure we all have. But it was basically like a race to see who could get to space first, And I'm not sure who won that, but I know that Russia really wanted to send the first woman into space. So they actually started training women to be astronauts, or as Russians call them, cosmonauts, which I thought kind of like cosmonauts was kind of cooler than astronauts, but they actually started training women for going to space before they started training men, which is freaking amazing, Like, that doesn't happen a lot, and I don't think I've ever heard that happen ever. Like, in the military, they train a woman before a man. Like, that's not very common, especially in the military, and I just thought that was super cool that Russia did that. I mean, it wasn't because they were like, oh, women are like they know more about this. It was more like Russia's got to have the first woman in space. They did not want an American woman to be the first woman in space. And I feel like me as an American, like at first when I heard that, I was kind of like, ugh, really? Like, why you gotta play it like that? But then it's like, if you actually think about it and you get down deep into it, and there are no countries, there's just one world. There are countries, but there shouldn't be, I should say. And so, like, when I hear, like, Russia saying that the only reason they sent Valentina up to space was because they wanted to have the first woman into space. Not that they wanted, like, they really cared about sending a woman to space. They really cared about Valentina's dreams. No, it was that they wanted to be before America. And I thought that was kind of petty, but regardless, I'm super happy that she got to go to space, and I'm glad that she got to be the first person to go to space, I don't care if she was Russian, Chinese, I don't care, or if she was American. I don't really care. I'm just glad personally that a woman got to go to space, and it wasn't like 100 years after a man got to go to space that a woman did, I'm glad it was relatively close. Like, a man went to space, then a woman went to space, and I thought that was super cool. But yeah, but while she was in the Air Force, she was actually selected to be a cosmonaut because she was an expertise in parachuting. So the Russian government gathered 5 women to be part of this space program, space mission, and they were going to send all 5 up into space. And they took several months to train, obviously, you got to train to go to space. But they trained and they worked, but, like, not all, like, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that, like, it wasn't just 5 random women, and Valentina wasn't just selected randomly, and she wasn't just selected because she was an expertise in parachuting. They actually had very strict requirements, and you had to be a certain size, a certain weight, a certain everything, and to be even selected or considered, And I think that's because of like the spaceship that they were flying in, they probably had to be like a certain height. But I'm not really sure why they had to be so like strict with the requirements, but I guess that's how they had to do it, But their training was very intense, as you would think, but they got through it. But not all of them actually did get through it, in fact. So, in fact, they only like 2 of them made it to the very end. So it was Valentina and another woman, and they were going to send those 2 women up to space in 2 separate spaceships. But I'm not sure what happened. Some stuff happened, and it turned out that Valentina and another man was going to go to space. So they were going to have Valentina in her own spaceship, and then the other man in his own spaceship. So the other girl was on like standby. She was like backup so that way if like Valentina got sick or hurt or she just couldn't do it anymore, they had a stand-in. But yeah, so like not all 5 women got to go to space, which kind of sucked, but one did, which is still good, you know. But yeah, so before they went to space, the government offered all of the women, or the 2 women, I should say, the 2 women who were going to go to space with titles in the army. And they could have them or they didn't have to have them on. Valentina was talking with other people, and they convinced her to take a title, because if not, they thought that the government would just like shove them out after. So now that they have a title, the title was a junior lieutenant. So they became junior lieutenant, so that way the government wouldn't kick them out after the mission. So they actually had a title. And after the mission, Valentina actually got promoted to lieutenant, and then she stayed in the Air Force, and she just kept growing up from there. But yeah, so so she didn't get to lieutenant. So during the flight, actually, she got promoted to captain. My bad. It wasn't lieutenant. It was captain. But that's freaking awesome. I feel like I'm not really familiar with any of the Army titles or anything like that, but I feel like captain's pretty high up there, and she got it, which is freaking amazing, you know? Okay, so the flight happened on June 16th, 1963. And this was a big day, you know? She made history this day. She was the first woman in space that day, which is freaking amazing. But before they went to space, there was this ritual that I guess all the cosmonauts do before they go to space. And all the cosmonauts before her were males. And they would all pee on the bus's tire before they would go into space. Why? I have no idea why. Why would you pee on the bus that was taking you? You know, doesn't make sense to me, but I guess it's a ritual now, and she was the first woman to pee on a bus tire. For going to space, you know, which, that's wild. I just thought that was kind of funny, and I wanted to share that. But yeah, so she, her spaceship was called the Vostok 6, and she was the only female to do a solo mission, and she was the only female to go to space, up to that point, you know, and she was also the youngest female to go to space too. So she was like the first of so many. Like, it's freaking amazing. She made history, which is amazing. But the total flight took 70.8 hours, which came to be like she orbited the Earth 48 times, which is awesome. But that whole flight took about 3 days in space. 3 days in space, that good little weekend getaway, you know, that's freaking amazing. But she logged more space time than any other American who had been to space previously. So, like, not only was she the first woman, but she also, like, beat a lot of American records because she was up there for so long, which is awesome. Her mission actually continued advancements in the space travel for women, which is amazing, you know what I mean? Like, she obviously was the first, and other countries followed, and other women followed, and they kept going to space, you know, which is amazing. I want to go to space so freaking bad. Like, I don't even know how to, like, express how bad I want to go, but I want to go. But yeah, so, after the flight, about 1 million flowers were sent to celebrate the accomplishment. Like, I couldn't imagine 1 million flowers. Like, that's such, like, I bet she felt so happy and felt like, wow, like, look what I just did. Which is amazing. Like, she did do, like, such an amazing job, you know, and she was the only woman to do it, you know. She didn't have another woman in a spaceship next to her. She had a man, you know, but she was the only person in her spaceship. She was the only person. She was the captain of the ship, and she did amazing, you know. She did fabulous, and I freaking love her for that. But after the flight, she actually went to an engineering academy, and she finished her engineering degree, which is amazing, you know what I mean? Like I said, like it took her a while to finish her schooling, but she eventually did, which is freaking amazing, and I applaud her for that. And I want other people to know that if you don't think you can go to school right now, that's okay. You know, there's going to be another opportunity in the future, and it might even be a better time for you to go to school in the future, you know? So just do what you feel like is right. Do what you feel like is going to make you succeed in life, because that's what's important, you know what I mean? What you think you can do to succeed in her life, you know, and that's freaking amazing. But she got a lot of awards for this, as she should, because, like, she was the first, you know. So she sorry, y'all, my camera died. I don't know what's freaking, I feel like it dies every time, but oh well. But anyway, so she's had a lot of accomplishments, which of course she has, because she was the first woman in space, you know what I mean? But she has been awarded with the Order of Lenin, which is a very, very high honor in Russia. She's also been titled the Hero of the Soviet Union, and she has won the United Nations Gold Medal of Peace, which is freaking amazing. She got that gold medal of peace because she became a spokesperson after she went to space. She actually never went back to space. She only did that one mission, but it was a pretty big mission, you know. But yeah, and the government also asked her like what they could do for her, and she said if they could find her father's body, because he died in World War II, like I said, and they found his body, and they actually created a monument for her father in her honor, which is amazing, you know what I mean? So, like, not only did that flight mean a lot to Russian women, it meant a lot to all women, as you can tell, you know? Like that was such a big accomplishment. It was freaking amazing. But in 1997, she retired from the Air Force as a major general. So she became a captain during the flight. So after, she kept going in the Air Force, and she became a major general, which I'm pretty sure that's really, really high up, which is freaking amazing for a woman, you know what I mean? And, like, that's amazing, you know? She became super active in political events, and I know that she has been a part of different groups throughout history, and I'm not really sure about them. I didn't look that far into it because I'm not really big into politics or anything like that, so I just kind of feel like her political part of her life was just something that I didn't want to talk about, just because I wasn't sure anything about it. So you don't talk about what you don't know, right? But she has held several offices in the government, and she still holds a spot in the office today, actually, which is super cool. But the government actually disbanded women from going to space, so the next woman didn't go to space until 1982. So she first went in 1963. The next one didn't go until 82. That's almost 20 years. That's like, see what I mean? Like, her achievement was huge because not a lot of women were allowed to go. And like, even though she got to go first, after her in Russia, no other woman could go after her, which is so freaking sad, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like that's not something that should have been banned, you know, but I'm not Russia, I'm not the government, so I can't really decide, but I just thought that was horrible. But yeah, so she actually started training other women to be cosmonauts after they allowed other women to go to space. So after 1982, she started training other women to go to space, which is awesome, you know what I mean? I would like to be trained by her, the first woman in space. I get to be trained by her. That's freaking amazing. But yeah, so on November 3rd, 1963, she actually married another fellow cosmonaut, and their wedding was to bring a fairy tale feeling to Russia. So, like, it was like an arranged marriage, and they did that, so it's like, oh, two cosmonauts fell in love, and now they're having a baby, and they actually did have a child together, and her name was Elena, which is freaking awesome. but not awesome because, which is not really cool because they didn't love each other and they were forced into that marriage for Russia, which is not cool. But their daughter, actually, Elena, was very highly interested in the medical business, or I should say, like, the medical industry was very interested in Elena because she was the first child to ever be born from two people who had been to space, and they wanted to see how that affects a child, and like maybe her DNA would be different, but it's not because they're still two people. Like, going to space doesn't change that. But they didn't know that at the time, So she was very like I'm sure she was like studied or whatnot, but yeah. But in 1980 they got a divorce, which could have told you that was coming, But Valentina actually got remarried to a doctor, but sadly he died in 1999. And I'm not sure if she ever got remarried after that. But yeah, she is an amazing woman. She has done so things, and they like awarded her for it, They've even actually named a crater after her on the moon, which is freaking awesome, you know what I mean? And the school that she attended when she was a child actually was renamed for her name, which is freaking awesome. That would be awesome. And she was a torchbearer for 2 Olympics throughout her life, and that's awesome too. Like, that would be, like, those are such cool accomplishments. And actually, the International Women of the Year Association said that she's the greatest woman achiever of the 20th century. What a freaking compliment, you know what I mean? Like, all of those things. Like, she has done so many amazing things, and she is such a wonderful person, and she has made such, like, huge strides for women in this world that shows us that we can do anything, we really can do anything that we want. And that's why I want to talk about her, because it's like she proved everybody wrong, and she was like, I'm going to space, and they sent her to space, and then they banned women from going to space, and then they disbanded, and then she started training other women to go to space, which is freaking awesome, you know what I mean? And so yeah, that was Valentina. I hope everybody enjoyed, because I know I did. I know I learned a lot, and I hope everybody did too, and I hope you enjoyed. And if you want to go check out more of Valentina, she's still alive, so you can go check her out. But yeah, so that was Valentina. And let's get into the positive segment time. Woohoo! So Costa Rica's electrical grid can run on renewable energy. Costa Rica ran on 100% renewable energy for 76 days straight, the second time in a row, totaling 150 days. Costa Rica's small size, half the state of Kentucky geographically, and relying on industries that aren't energy intensive, contributed heavily on this success. But it is solid proof that drawing on multiple energy sources at a regional and local level can heavily cut down on fossil fuels. That is so freaking awesome, Costa Rica. Like, thank you so much for doing that, and I hope that the rest of the world is like watching them and like studying and seeing how they're doing it, because renewable energy is freaking awesome. You know what I mean? Like, we can run on renewable energy. We wouldn't have to destroy this planet anymore. We could save it and try to like heal it, and that's what Costa Rica is doing, which is amazing. And so thank you, Costa Rica, for doing that. And I really hope that the rest of the world follows suit and starts trying to make this planet a better planet, because I know it can be, because it once was before we started trying to destroy it, So yeah, let's protect this planet while we got it. But yeah, so that was the episode. I hope everybody enjoyed. I hope everybody learned a lot about Valentina, and I hope you'll look into her more, because she was an amazing person. But yeah, so if you want to go follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, you can find it at Power to Women. And if you also want to go follow my personal Instagram page at EmilyNichols00, that'd be awesome. And my personal Twitter page at YoungEmily1864, that would also be awesome. You can find this podcast on all podcasting mediums. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed, and have an amazing rest of your day. Be safe out there. Wash your hands. Help protect this planet. And look up to the sky every once in a while, Dream something big, And I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, because you deserve it. Go out there and do something that you want. And I'll see ya and I'll talk to ya next week. Peace and aliens be with you.